14.2% unemployment rate, 28.58 million persons out of jobs. These young entrepreneurs take a step into the future to develop out-of-norm ideas, creating jobs and inspiring youth to think outside the box. Welcome to Pathfinders Thursday, where we celebrate the icons of our generations and indeed the leaders of our tomorrow.
Every Thursday, we go from the north to the south, east to west, deep down to the community, bringing you young innovators, excellence of the best. We call them Pathfinders.
Good day, viewer. My name is Vincent Valerie, and I'm with Journey's Initiative for Youth Empowerment, G4A. We welcome you all to Pathfinders Thursday. Today, our Pathfinder is a very interesting person who has tapped into the field of thought and has also found a way to employ others to do the same for themselves. He is Victor Prince Dickson from Ikodebo, it's in the local government of Akwa Ibom State. He's an alumnus of the prestigious University of Jos, where he studied theatre arts. He's the inventor of the Common Sense game card, the founder of Micro Reality Thinking Academy, an author, an expert in stimulation, applied imagination, and design thinking. How do you do?
Okay, thank you for having me, Valerie.
Okay. You're the executive of Spice Media.
Yes.
Tell us about Spice Media.
Well, Spice Media is actually a brand with very, very far-reaching, network. I think that's what I will use. And El Spice simply means El Elohim, spice the world. It's a short prayer. So it's like El Spice. El Elohim, spice the world through us. And the whole idea about El Spice is that we intend to use creative means to really reach out to the world and make the world a better place. So El Spice is like a company, an organization, and also an agency at the same time. So we have like almost 4 or 5 broad aspects of, the company. We have El Spice, which is El Spice Books. That one is focused on book publishing. So what we do there is just to publish books. And what we're looking to achieve is that over time, nobody can ever grow to achieve their own potential except they're able to document the processes they've gone through, learn from the ancestors, learn from the present, and then also see how best to document their future. So we have El Spice Book, which is dedicated for that. And then we have El Spice Film and Television. And that is the next arm that has to do with using film and television to explore ideas and explain ideas.
Okay, that's beautiful. So you're a movie director, you're a TV content developer,
yes,
you write and author.
Yes.
How do you manage to do all of this within a short period of time?
Yeah, you could do it. It's just about management. The first thing we do, there's this thing they call resource appropriation.
Okay.
Simply means you sit down, atomize your resources, look at your capacity, look at your skills, and then break them down and know how best to employ them at a point in time. And it has to do with strategy. And if you understand the skill, it's as simple as that.
Okay. And then I saw your book, Thinking Field.
Yes.
What was the book about and how did it come about?
Well, the whole idea about Thinking Field is that over time, one of the things I realized as I was, going up right from school to this point, as you look at the development in the world, you realize that the most important thing, the greatest skill in the world is thinking. It's greater than every form of skill. Because what does thinking do? Thinking processes raw data to give you information, and process information to give you knowledge, process knowledge to give you innovation. So which means anybody who has the capacity and the ability to think, that person is a solutionist anywhere, anytime. Take the person to the desert, he will make it work. Take the person to the sea, he will make it work. So I now felt, give and take, if that was the idea, let me see how best to boost and inspire Africans to start to think. Because our weakness with the black skin is that we are more emotional. We just feel, we don't think. And because we feel and we don't think, most of the time we complain and complain and complain, do so much activities, but less, solution and value. So based on that, I decided to write on Thinking Field, hoping that I will use that to maybe really teach people how thought evolves, how solution evolve, how people invent, how people innovate and create. And that was the whole idea about Thinking Field.
Very good. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think young Nigerian youths make use of their thinking field?
Obviously, I can tell you they don't.
You don't? And what do you think we can do about this?
Obviously, learning. Learn. There's no shorter cut. The biggest thing, one of the things we've not learned very well is that one of the things that is lacking in the Nigerian context, in the African context, is that we don't like learning. And because we don't like learning, that's why you see Africa is having all the problems we're having. As if there is anything special about the problems we have. Nothing special, just because we don't learn. And because we don't learn, we don't know how to solve problems.
Now this brings me to the game you invented, Common Sense.
Yes.
What's it about?
Yeah, common sense. I wanted to teach like 4 or 5 things at the same time, and for which I felt that books enough can carry. Now, I have a couple of books. You know about Thinking Field. Also have Anatomy of Entrepreneurship. I have Divine Civilization, and I have Mastering the Knowledge Economy, and also which other one again? A couple of books there. But then there is this thing I wanted to teach, because we're in what we call the knowledge economy presently. And for you to survive in the knowledge economy, you need like 5 skills. If you don't have those 5 skills, you cannot survive in the knowledge economy. The first one is you have what they call critical skill. And what does critical skill does is that it teaches you the ability to evaluate a thing and analyze a thing. But the truth is that when you evaluate and analyze, you have not solved it. You only evaluate it and analyze it. So you don't solve it. So you need the next skill. And the next skill is called strategic thinking, which means how do you plan to achieve what you're thinking? You need a third one called creative thinking, which is how do you add new value or use a new approach to solve an old problem. So you see, these are 3 skills, but even that is not enough. You need the 4th skill called emotional competence. You need to understand how people behave, how they relate, how you connect with them to be able to help you move to the next level. So in order to teach all these things, it was like a difficult combo. Do you understand? How many books will I write? I need to write a book about personality profiling. I need to write books on different things. So I now felt the best thing I could do is, how can I teach people in a platform where they can laugh, where they could be happy, where they could connect with friends and the rest. And thus, I can boast, what you call it now, importantly say that I have been in the forefront of what we call the nativity revolution, which is how do you push Africans to start thinking like Africans, solving problems like Africans. Don't borrow every solution, because that's our weakness. So in trying to do that, I was looking for something that can elicit that response from Africans to start thinking of themselves. So that was what gave birth to Common Sense.
And how long did it take you to develop the Common Sense?
5 years.
5 years?
5 years of research, investment, money, finance, time, question, study. That's what it took.
As any game, and I know for you to invent something that beautiful, you must have faced challenges. So what are some challenges you faced?
Well, some of the challenges, number one, it didn't make sense. Coming back from service, and eventually we left everything, had a lot of opportunities, employment opportunities, and you're leaving them, you want to go and do research in an environment where people don't respect research. It was a crazy work, you understand? And parents, friends were like, guy, you mean everything you study with all your creativity, you want to do research. When will this research finish? I wasn't sure, because it was when I'm sure the product was ready. That is when the research, at least the first phase, should have been done. So it was highly challenging. And so based on that, you know what that means. You get money from other jobs by way of consultancy. You get other money from other jobs like script writing, production, and you take the whole money. You don't use it for anything again. You pump it into experiment, just to experiment the process. It was a crazy thing. And in an environment where people don't appreciate things like this, it was more or less like, man, what's wrong with you?
Okay. We'll be going for a commercial break. When we return, we'll learn more about the Common Sense card. Welcome you all back. Now we will be playing the Common Sense game card. But before we begin, I would love you to tell what are the rules of the game.
Okay, yeah. Basically, there are 4 rules of the game.
Okay.
The first rule says that everything in life is connected. Find the connection. So simply, it means that each of the cards are connected. Okay. So it is your duty to connect each card to another. Do you understand? Okay. But the whole idea is that you must explain how they are connected. And you must do that explanation within 60 seconds. When you're done after 60 seconds, you're entitled, or the people you're playing with are entitled to ask you a question. And if they ask you once, and then you're entitled also to respond once. But after that, you're done. If your explanation is connected enough that everybody will agree that they have a common value to what you have said, it means you have connected. But if your explanation is not connected enough, it simply means you go to school. So you go and pick one extra card. That's rule number one. Then rule number two, there's a card called common sense. Now, when you play common sense, the person by you, the next person that's supposed to play, goes to school twice without playing.
Okay.
Except if that person has common sense, because there are 5 common sense cards in a pack. If the person has common sense, then the person can defend. At that point, you say common sense cancels common sense. Then you have a third rule, and the third rule says that it has to do with money. So if you have money, you can say, I want to buy so thing. Whatever any of your cards, you can say, I want to buy peace, I want to buy trust, or otherwise. But the rule that is attached to it, you must explain, can money buy whatever you want to buy? Do you understand? And if you cannot explain convincingly, it means you go to school. But if you explain convincingly, everybody's supposed to play what you have asked for, but which they're not going to have, because outside common sense and money, there's no card that is replicated. Each card is one. So anyone you ask which you have, it means nobody's going to have it. So it's a very subtle way of sending everybody to school. Then finally, there is a card called life and death. Now, for you to win the common sense, you must be the first person to finish your cards. That's how you become a winner. But with life and death, sometimes you get so challenged, and because of the game principle, you don't want some people to win, you just want to punish them. You can play death. At the point you play death, it means everything is cancelled, nobody can win. It's like, say, we scatter and we're starting afresh. But if somebody has a card life, that person can play on death when you play death, and then put it on life. At that point, you say the game has resurrected, so you now continue. So basically, these are the rules.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, let's play the game.
Why not?
Okay.
Time. Okay, you have time and money, so explain. How is time connected to money?
Okay. Now, this actually brings me to a question. People have different point of views, and they could say money can buy time.
Yes.
Understand? And well, I'd want to know what you think about it. In this game, do you think money can buy time?
Yeah, now the first thing you have to understand first, what was the philosophy behind common sense? That's when you understand why that rules apply. And the first thing is that what we're hoping to achieve in common sense is that how can you communicate in such a way everybody will find comfort in it? Do you understand? It teaches you marketing. That's one of the principles. Sometimes as young people, we have visions. We have good ideas, but we don't know how to sell it across. So sometimes it's not that your visions are not good. It is how do you construct and convince either the investor, for instance, now you're an entrepreneur, how to invest. So when you say time and money, for instance, for you, on the average, it wouldn't mean anything. But somebody who understands a little bit deeper what time is, what money is, can tell you, by the way, when you go to work from 8 to 5, what is happening? Is somebody not buying your time? They are buying your time, they are buying your skills. Because sometimes they can buy your skills, but you don't have the time. But when you go to work from 8 to 5, it means somebody is paying for your time. So which means time can be bought.
So I can only play time if I can explain it.
That's just the bottom line. Because the key thing about common sense, that's why we call it common sense. It means how can you connect any problem? How can you connect a solution to a point that it becomes a common value for everybody? The old would understand, the young would understand. Even people who are not sharing the same religion with you will understand. That's just the bottom line. Because our problem and why the world is getting really full of conflict these days is that people want to talk the way they feel like. They forget about the other person is coming from a different background, different culture, different history. So if you are connecting with them, you should be able to speak in language they should understand. And this is what they call our common, value system. So what common sense is saying, that those are our strengths. For example, in Nigeria, we fight a lot. We say we are too diverse. But because we forget to harvest that common part of us. That look, the Yoruba man and the Hausa man, the Igbo man, there is a common part of us. But we don't talk about the common part. We always talk about the diverse part. And that's where the problem is. And that's what we're hoping that with common sense. Then I would say common sense.
Okay, so this is the point where I get to go to school twice.
Very much twice. It's like doing double masters, I suppose.
Now, before I go to school, I want to understand something. Why do I have to go to school twice?
Yeah, going to school simply means if you take it a little bit more extensive, it will be like asking yourself, why is it that the Western world is like 2-3 steps ahead of Africans? Okay. Now, when you take a very deep, serious decision, something native, anytime you create a value, anytime you're able to create a new set of knowledge, the person you're dealing with has to step to meet up before he catches up to you. So what common sense says is that I've taken 2 steps ahead of you in knowledge. So you need to learn twice to catch up with me.
Wow. Okay, and then also the graphic is in black and white. What did you have in mind?
Yes, it's still part of the nativity revolution. What was saying is that if you look at of all the animals in the world, only zebra is in Africa.
Okay.
Only zebra. And so what we're trying to say is that we're trying to bring home that this is our own. In fact, the first initial offer we had at the point Common Sense was ready was from the US.
Okay.
Good money, but we needed to change the zebra. And most times these are the things that affect us. And so we refused because we wanted that identity to be there. And then secondly, if you notice, the core discussion in Common Sense has to do with morals, right and wrong, values. So what we're trying to say is that there is a way, you approach issues based on value. We also wanted to teach values in the process. And black and white is consistently a reminder that, look, there are 2 value systems. There are the good, there are the bad. So it helps you to now take decisions at every point in time.
That's beautiful. I also noticed that every card has other words written underneath it.
Yes.
Like water has earth, wind, fire. What is what?
It's a subtle way. We usually don't promote that easily, but it's the subtle way we teach at the point when people are using it very well.
Okay.
What we're doing that we're also mindful of the fact at the point of doing this that there are people who are, very, very argument friendly. Anything you argue with them, they will insist. In fact, not because you're making sense, just because they just believe you are not connecting. Do you understand? So we added that. It's like a subtle word. What we are putting that word is that you notice if you go through Common Sense, there are certain cards such that you can connect it with those words. If the person you're discussing with refuses to accept your connection, you can fall back and say, under these words, we have these words already, who already will have calculated based on probability that will still connect. So you can use that words under to connect your card. If your average connection is not working, and you need to connect by all means. But not all the cards are.
Now, these consequences in this game, do you think they apply to real life situations?
Yes, they do. In fact, one of my strengths is simulation. And if you understand what simulation is, simulation simply means ability for you to sit down in a controlled environment and practice what you're going to do in real life. So this is simulation. Now, these are things you're going to meet people. In business, you're going to meet people to discuss with them. In family, you're going to discuss with them. Even if you're married, you're going to be arguing sometimes with your husband, even with your lover, even with your children. And even if you go to a bigger level, even what you call bilateral agreement, you're going to sit down to negotiate. So what this teaches you on a simulation level is ability to learn how to negotiate your way out of things without fighting. Where it's not, look, if I don't have my way, I'm going to beat you. No. It's about how do you intelligently, strategically put across your argument in such a way you win without insulting a person. That's the real life issue it comes to be. And then if you're a marketer, if you can sell each card by way of connection, it means you can sell a product, you can sell a brand. It's a business for you.
Well,
So that's how it goes.
I'd like to ask, I'm sure people would love to play this game. So my question is this, how far is this game going in Nigeria and how far do you intend to take it?
Obviously, in fact, I have a target frame of that in the next 10 years we want it around the world, generally. In fact, we're working towards translating to different languages. The French version also, we're working on it. Swahili version is there, Chinese version, we're working on it. Most of these things are coming. And then don't forget, this is just one out of the House of Common Sense. Originally, it's just a unit of the House of Common Sense. House of Common Sense carries Common Sense Radio, Common Sense Television, Common Sense Reality Show, Common Sense Prisons, Common Sense Global Connect. This is just Common Sense cards. And all these things are delivery units. So the whole idea is that how are we going to make learning interesting?
Okay.
Because so far so good. The problem is we've been teaching people in a very, in what do you call it, in classroom before the class board. So sometimes it's becoming very difficult people to think. So sometimes when they go to school with an idea that, look, let's just manage and survive the 4 years, and then we walk away. So it makes learning not interesting. So what we are hoping to achieve with this is to democratize learning principle. It's called the gamification process of learning, where you make learning friendly. So that you not start learning like a child. You play, you poke, you laugh, you have fun, or you are learning.
That's very nice. Now, on the issue of school, you have the Micro-Reality Thinking Academy.
Yes.
And then how many persons have benefited from it?
So far, so good. I think we've trained close to at least 700 persons. And when I mean 700 persons, we mean CEOs, entrepreneurs, government functionaries, and the rest of them. Because what we're doing with the Micro-Reality Thinking Academy is still in the same arm of thinking and creativity. What we're looking at, that's why if you look at the word, is Micro-Reality Thinking Academy. It's the same principle of simulation. Simply means that we're going to reduce the world into a micro form, into a small form. That any challenge you're going to get in employment, will reduce it in a small form.
Okay.
The challenges you're going to get in marriages, will reduce it to a small form. And then you can practice with it and learn how to manage it. So we create thinking methodologies. So far we have like 12 thinking methodologies. And I can tell you, Micro Real Thinking Academy is the only thinking model and school from Africa that is listed among other global thinking academies around the world. And so what we do usually is that we bring people together and then we now simulate situations for them and then they learn from there. That's where we teach things like strategic thinking, strategic management, appropriation, resource management, and the rest of them, because that's what we're missing. Our problem is not that we don't have enough doctors, engineers. No, it's not that we don't have enough filmmakers. It's not that we don't have enough businessmen, entrepreneurs. It's we don't have people who have the strategic skill set to manipulate and manage the system when it is difficult. That is a problem we don't have. And that's why most people are not going anywhere. They have the talent. But how do you use the talent to make an industry out of your talent? That is where the challenge is. And that's what micro reality is solving.
Okay. I've been listening to you and I think you mentioned thinking a whole lot. Now, how has thinking helped you personally as an individual?
Personally, you don't need anybody telling you. You see this. As we're talking now, we have common sense, right? And then I have like 7, 8 books. That's to tell you that's what thinking does. And for me to be able to run an organization that cuts across almost 7 industries, 7 different industries, that's to tell you what thinking does. And then also to build the fact that I can tell you in the next, because one of our major target is we're hoping to establish University of Human Intelligence.
Okay.
Because however smart the computer is, even what the so-called artificial intelligence is overrated. Reason being that it is a human mind that created artificial intelligence. So whatever thing is going to come, the human mind is stronger. So we're hoping to start our Human Intelligence University in the next 15 to 20 years. But for now, we're hoping in the next 3-4 years to officially open up our Human Capital, Institute of Human Capital. But for now, we're running trainings. And then very soon online. You can even go online to go and measure your emotions, the way you're feeling.
Oh, that's beautiful. It has been a fun time with you today.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, would you like to say anything to the viewers?
Well, the only thing I'm going to say is this. I think a few things. Number one is this. For every person watching, I want you to understand that the population of Nigeria is expected to double in the next 20 years.
Okay.
So simply it means that the resources are going to get scarce and scarce. So it's not about the government. At this point in time, we're dealing with 180 million persons. In the next 20 years or 30 years, we might be dealing with 400 million persons searching for the same thing you can't get now. So that's to tell you you're going to have some very serious challenges out there. And the only thing that can help you is to build your skill set. And for you to build that skill set, you must learn. You must learn. There is no shortcut. And this skill set include, like I said earlier on, and I want to repeat it so that they remember it. Number one, critical skills, critical thinking skills. You need to analyze, you need to evaluate. You need to build your strategic skills. You must know how to navigate your way through the difficult part. You must build your creative skills so that you'll be able to create new values, invent and innovate. You must build the skill for emotional competence. You must learn that. There's no way about that. Then you must learn strategic communication skills, meaning you must learn how to sell your vision to the people. It's not speaking your vision makes a difference. Selling is the one people invest. If you don't sell, nobody invests. So these 5 skills are most important. And presently, from next year, there's going to be a new buzzword you're going to be hearing, and that is called human economy, because we're moving from knowledge economy to human economy. And in human economy, you need 7 skill sets. Knowledge economy, you need 5 skill sets. And if you don't learn, you'll be able to solve it.
Wow. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you. I hope we've learned a lot because I have learned a lot. Thank you all for listening. My name is Vincent Valerie and I'm with Johnny's Initiative for Youth and G4A. This is Pathfinders Thursday. See you next week.